Buenas tardes, good afternoon. Bienvenidos a ¿Qué pasa mujer? Welcome to ¿Qué pasa mujer? We're here every Sunday at 4 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. Estamos aquí todos los domingos a las 4 de la tarde, horario de Nueva York. Y hoy estamos celebrando el primer domingo de octubre. Entonces ya nos falta octubre, noviembre y diciembre y ya terminamos con el 2024 y seguimos con el 2025. Entonces hoy vamos a hablar de un tema que es súper importante. En referencia de nuestros planes financieros. So today we're celebrating the first Sunday of October. So of course we have the month of October, November, and December, and then 2024 will be over, and we have to get ready for 2025. So today we have a special guest with us, and we're going to be talking about the important topic of finances, and what we still have 3 months to get our life together with our finances, to start prepping for 2025, because we have to do a better job in 2025. Progress, not perfection. It's our motto here at Que Pasa Mujer. So Mark is going to go ahead and bring Gisela on. It's just myself, Nicte, and Maddie are doing life without Que Pasa Mujer today. So it's just our guest today. And hola Gisela, how are you?
Oh, I'm good. How are you? ¿Cómo estás?
Bien, gracias. So Gisela, we wanted to bring her on because she's been in the world of finance for a long time. We're going to get to know her a little bit more, but she's been in very different platforms with the Latino community and with the non-Latino community, and her own personal experiences as well. So Gisela, welcome to Que Pasa Mujer.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Thank you. Appreciate it. So typically we have Nikki and Maddie with us, and
Yeah.
we discuss at the beginning of the show how our week was. So you and I are solo on this project today.
Oh,
So just tell us a little bit about, because as women, we have different challenges than the other gender at times, with juggling life, children, relationships, ourselves, the workplace, finances, making
mhm.
all the decisions that we have to make every day. So if you can kind of think about maybe something that just kind of happened throughout the week that maybe was a challenge or not, but just something in reference to gratitude for the week.
It's funny that you say that. And being a woman, like we have issues sometimes that come up that we would want somebody to come and save the day for, say, a man. I've had like the most honest car issues recently that kind of
Oh
put
my
me
God,
in like a
yes.
bind where. So my father was a mechanic for 40 years. I was used to kind of giving him a call, Daddy, esto está pasando con mi carro, can you come look at it, whatever. So come and look, and my problem solved. Now it's different. He's not around. Um, Also, life changes. Don't have that individual to call to say, hey, this is happening. So figuring that out on your own as a female can be hard. I had a flat tire while I was going into work on base, and then just yesterday my key situation wasn't working. So like just having to navigate kind of all of that on your own. Was interesting, but it worked out. Like everything was really smooth. I didn't get into any kind of, thank God, like no accident. The tire popped, and it was kind of. So I'm thankful for that. Like it wasn't an easy day for whatever reason, but it still worked out, and everything ended up for the best that it could be in that situation. So definitely thankful. And it always happens. Like things will kind of detour you from the original plan, and then you just got to jump back right into
Yeah.
what keep going.
Yeah, that's what we do all the time. And I
Mhm.
know that's rough, right? Because you're used to kind of making that phone call,
Yeah.
and that person comes to the rescue because it feels so good,
Hmm.
for that rescue to happen. I know this weekend I went to an event about women that have been through domestic abuse,
Hmm.
and so one of the ladies wrote a book, and she said she had to, when she got older, through her healing process, she had to create her own superhero.
Mm.
So it makes me think about what you just talking about, because sometimes, yes, we rely on other people, but and it's nice to have it. It's kind of like a bonus,
Hmm.
and it's the part of having gratitude and not taking, those people for granted. But she made me think about, like, am I my own superhero, or
Yeah.
am I relying on other people? But I think that thought is kind of like intriguing, to be able to say, hey, I have my own superhero,
Yeah.
because like you said, at the end of the day, you kind of made it happen, and
Yeah.
you know solutions, not problems. So
Hey, yeah, exactly.
yeah, we do that all the time, and I think that's just one of our it's one of our gifts that we're
Yeah,
able to do, to kind of like juggle and just figure it out,
yeah, make it
because
happen.
it will be 7 o'clock tomorrow morning all over again.
Exactly. A whole nother week.
Yeah. So I wanted you to tell us a little bit about just your expertise with finances. How long have you been doing this, and how did you end up in this field?
So it's kind of funny too in a sense because I didn't start out this way. So we didn't talk about finances growing up. It wasn't a thing. We learned kind of the hard way. But I did love it. Like I always loved math. I was good at math in school and just high school, that kind of thing. I love that there was always a solution. So like, numbers don't lie. You can figure out an answer to something eventually, just kind of going through the process. So that I loved. I love that I could always come up with an answer, and whatever it was, if it was mathematical, we could figure it out. So that I enjoyed. When I got out of college, I started working in IT for about 5 years. So it was nothing having to do with math until I got towards the end of that particular time in my life. So towards the end of that career, I was in North Carolina before we moved to Virginia, and I became the manager of the training center where they did like IT training. Like back in the day, it was Microsoft Office, like Microsoft certifications and A+ and all that kind of stuff. So I ran that center, but part of that process was also providing worksheets or spreadsheets at the end of like every month to say how we did with numbers, how many contracts did we get, all that kind of stuff. So that also intrigued me. Um, we ended up moving to Virginia, not necessarily part of the plan at that point, at that part of my life, where our family kind of transitioned to Virginia, and I didn't know what I was going to do. So I always knew I wanted to do something in financial or whatever. So somebody was like, "Why don't you just apply for the bank?" So I did. I applied at a local bank here. I started off as a teller, so I did that. I did personal banker. I did all the different roles in those areas, and then I went into bank management around 2010. So it allowed me to kind of see like all the different phases of somebody's life. So when they, are just get opening up a checking account and starting their whole financial world, and then they need to get credit, and then they have to buy a house, and they have to buy a car, and they have to do all those kind of things. As I got into that, I did that for about 10 years, and towards the end of that, I was like, okay, I got this down. Like I want to do something else. I want to be able to have more of an impact. You're sort of limited depending on where you work, on what you can do and offer, and so on. So somebody had also presented me with an opportunity about going to do like insurance and financial planning and so on. Never really thought that that's where my life was going to go, but you just kind of got to follow the path sometimes. So started doing that, and that was more rewarding in the sense of, so as a banker, you kind of see somebody improve their credit and be able to like financially get all the lending and things like that they need. When you're doing planning, it kind of covers all the areas of finance. So, you're talking about saving, you're talking about their children, you're talking about when they get older, what's going to happen, all that kind of stuff. So I really enjoyed that. I enjoyed meeting people. I wasn't in one particular area at any given time. I was kind of all over the place. I think you saw back back in the day, all over Hampton Roads. A couple of times where I would take a flight somewhere to kind of, do an appointment and so on. So that was exciting. I enjoy sitting still behind a desk. So for me, that was kind of a perfect thing to do. It also let me go do a lot of stuff in the community. So my hours were kind of on me, and that I enjoyed. Because of some recent life changes, I needed a little bit more structure because that is kind of all you're in constant. It's almost like real estate, or like you're 24 hours a day you're open when you're doing that kind of stuff. I needed something that was a little bit more structured, so I kind of went back to where my financial world took me in the beginning with banking, or just being in an institution of some sort. And I was presented with an offer to work for the Navy. So never again did I think I was going to be in this realm, but now I do the same thing I've done as a banker, as a financial planner, kind of all the lessons that I've learned, all the education that I took from that. Now I'm able to share that with sailors, and that kind of is a way to give back, so that it's helping them while they're in service and then generations to come. So if they're starting out the right way when they join, or even mid-career or whatever it might be, by the time they get out, hopefully, if we've had a conversation, if we've done some work, then they can get out and retire and enjoy their family. And then their kids are also learning from the things that they've learned. And then it just progresses from there. So it's an honor right now to kind of help, anybody in the military. My brothers were Army, they retired, so I know the struggles they kind of went through. So being able to give back in this way and do it as a profession, it's almost like, I'm thankful for that, because it just kind of brings everything full circle, and yeah, it gives me a different outlook on life.
Wow, that's a lot of experience. I love what you said about, sometimes we're given a path of different things that are thrown at us, different jobs, different roles, different challenges that we go through life. And we don't see at the moment that they're meant for the benefit of later on, right? Either
Right.
for yourself or somebody else. So I remember when I was younger, my mom and I would work, we would do merchandising. And we would get, like these planograms, these maps of where the products needed to be placed.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes we would just criticize the people up in corporate because they were like, oh my, like this makes no sense, right? So ever since that, my mindset changed, and I do it in my business now. I own a tutoring business and I still tutor. I
Mm-hmm.
tutor because I like it. Number one, like I find joy in it, but also because I understand that it keeps you in a plane with everybody else that does the job, right?
Yeah.
So whenever we would do, my mom and I would do the merchandising jobs, it would be a lot of errors that would happen because the people that created those maps would never come down to the stores and do the
Right. See what it was. Yes.
dirty, needy
Mm-hmm.
work, the one that people that are actually doing the implementation of that map. And so I think it's important that you know how the creation of opening an account looks like,
Right.
right? Which is like your most basic transaction
Mm-hmm.
that you could do it at a bank, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and all of those things allow you to then be a true expert in your field to be able to help not just the military, but just people outside of the military as well, and just
Mm-hmm.
from your personal experience. And I just think it's awesome that
Yeah.
you have been able to embrace that and that you can see the full circle, because
Yeah.
some people don't see the full circle. I was listening to someone on YouTube earlier today, and they were talking about how they live in misery, like that. Those were the words that were coming out of his mouth. And the lady was like, no, like it's misery
It
because
feels
you
to say
you
that.
make it misery, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't have like that doesn't have to be the feeling. And
Right.
even sometimes I remember I had a job where I had to do scheduling and I hated it.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I had my own tutoring business, guess what I had to do?
Scheduling.
Scheduling,
Yeah.
right? And I
Yeah.
was like, oh man, God has like this crazy sense of
Mm-hmm.
humor. But
Mm-hmm.
it's almost like sometimes you have those not so positive
Right.
experiences, also to learn how not to do it.
A
And
thousand.
then later on in life, you can kind of learn how to do it properly. Um, I wanted to ask you a little bit in reference to like those life changes that you talk about, right? So like women that go through a divorce or a separation, and then now the income is cut in half,
Mm-hmm.
or you might live with a grandparent or a parent, and then they pass away and they're no longer here, and so the
Mm-hmm.
dynamic changes. So what are some, because there's the emotional changes that go with that, in
Right.
addition to the black and white spreadsheet, like now we
Right.
have minus $1,000 every month.
Right.
So talk to me a little bit about that.
Well, I mean, of course, every situation is different, but give yourself time, of course, to reflect on what's happening, not to kind of jump into the next thing, because sometimes we could hurry and think that we want to find a solution real quick to that. But it's difficult when you have a life change. If you're getting the divorce, for example, you were in a household where there's two incomes, things are done set or together for the most part financially, and then now you're having to figure it out all on your own, whether or not you were on top of what bills need to be paid or not. So I've seen a lot of scenarios where some people have no idea what's going on in the house financially, and then they have to leave and figure out, okay, how do I pay this light bill, this utility stuff? Do I have enough money in savings to take care of an emergency? How does my credit look now that I'm not with this person anymore? There could have been accounts that were joined and now they have to be closed because it's part of the process. So yeah, there's all different factors that can affect that. Making sure you talk to somebody to kind of help get through that. If you have somebody that's a trusted person, whether it's your banker, whether it's a friend who maybe is good with resolving solutions or being in a financial situation, but definitely have a conversation to see how you can overcome that without overwhelming yourself, because it's already overwhelming to go through that change. But we can almost always find a solution or find a way to kind of navigate you through the process. So usually somebody comes to me and they're going through a situation where that's happening, and they're always sort of in a negative light, like you said, like the gentleman who, or the person that said that they were living in misery, and it's a horrible thing. Like it's heartbreaking to kind of hear somebody say that. Um, but they would come in and they come distraught, and it's just kind of giving them that calm of like, look, this is not the end of the world. We're gonna make it to the end stage of this, and 6 months, 12 months down the line, you're gonna be a different person, and you're gonna see that we made it through. It's just right now the initial phase of like, let's call these creditors, let's call the utility company, let's kind of get everything transitioned to where it needs to be so that you're at least comfortable, and then figure out what income is missing and how we're going to kind of navigate through that part as
Yeah,
well.
I think that's
Mm-hmm.
important. It made me think about there's a young lady that I know, and a couple of months ago, she called me and her husband passed away.
Oh,
And she wasn't sick. He wasn't sick or anything like that. So not only a divorce, but it could be a illness,
right.
even somebody ending up in a hospital. So I think from what you're talking, Gisela, it makes me think about what Maddie tells us all the time, to educate ourselves.
Yeah.
So even though you may be in a healthy marriage, or
Mm-hmm.
in a healthy living situation, still be aware of the finances of the household. I got
Right.
a phone call the other day, and the lady was looking for assistance for her water bill, because now her spouse is incarcerated, and she saw the bill and they owe $1,800.
Wow.
So she wasn't aware. So I think it's just having that communication, that
Mhm.
open communication, to know what's going on, and it's not to take power away from
No.
the other person, but it really should be done in love, to say,
That's
"Hey, honey, what's going on? Let me find out what's going on." I
right.
remember I had a friend there. The dad passed away, and then the mom was now in charge of paying the bills, and she didn't know how to write a check.
Mm-hmm.
They were kind of like more old school. But yeah, those little things, you paying it online is an, automatic withdrawal. And then all
Yeah.
of a sudden you have all these things coming out of your bank account. So just, we encourage you to, plan for the worst, right? But it's really to plan so that your family is not in a situation, God forbid, something happens to the other party.
Yeah, we kind of, everybody grows up in a different scenario. So like, you could have had the perfect household where everybody was talking to each other and they're managing bills, or you could have been in a household where everything's kind of a secret and nobody knows what really is happening behind the scenes. So I heard one couple who did like a weekly check-in. So every week they'd kind of get together and they're like, okay, what's happening this week? Has anything changed? Are you reaching those goals that you want to get to? Like, so it would be a positive conversation at the same
Yeah,
time
not
saying,
like the grandmas that hide the, money under
right.
the bra.
Exactly. Yeah. And then all of a sudden the door, somebody's knocking on the door and they're like, "Hey, you owe us such and such." And like, "We're not home." So yeah, you don't want to be that in that situation. But absolutely having that conversation is so important. Even the goal would be to make that a healthy relationship going forward, and that could save that situation from getting worse, by having that open communication. And if there is
Yeah.
a struggle happening, or maybe somebody's income has changed or changes have happened and they may not be aware, so someone is frustrated and they don't know why they're frustrated, so it kind of leads to a whole bunch of other stuff. But yeah,
Yeah,
having
because
that
it's almost like if you can't have that conversation, then you just have some other type of problems in the
right.
relationship,
No,
right?
that's 100% true, and that's where you just unfortunately had mentioned, like you had talked, there was a whole domestic so that now being October and Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and there's situations where sometimes somebody's not comfortable saying, we don't have enough to pay such and such, and then they go through extreme measures, try to figure it out, or kind of keep that peace without it getting to a different kind of level. So yeah.
Mhm.
Hmm.
Yeah, I see. Just in reading and just talking to people and just listening to people, a lot of people are doing those. I think there's an acronym for it, but those kind of like quick loans where you
Oh
just
yeah.
pay in payments and you don't have to pay interest for that amount of time. What do you think about those?
um so it's there for a reason. Obviously, maybe there's a need, or there's some people can manage that, and they just want to, maybe they just don't want to pay it all at once for whatever reason. The thing is that it can turn into a cycle of getting caught up in several of those. So
Mhm.
it could be where you get, and that we do see that at times. Sometimes there's certain banks that offer like overdraft line of credit, and every time that person is getting paid, it's going into that overdraft line of credit. So they're reusing it over and over again. And then now they're living beyond their means using that, and then eventually it'll turn to where that's not going to be enough. So then there's another offer to spread out
Mhm.
payments, or get another loan to fund this loan and that kind of thing. And then so we see where there's it could kind of spiral into an effect where now you're getting paid and all of that is going to these loans, that you thought were just a couple $100 or maybe $500 or whatever that is, and now you're
Mhm.
not getting a paycheck and it's all going to pay for that. And then so it's making sure you're aware of your expenses and then planning for anything that can happen outside of that ahead
Because
of time.
it's almost addicting, like I'm
100%.
paying I'm paying $1,000, but I don't have to pay interest if I break it down. So then now you want to make another purchase somewhere else, and you're like, oh, let
Mhm.
me do this here too. And then all of a sudden you're paying five, $600 a
Right.
month, and
Every
you're
month.
stuck.
And the stuff is already purchased or whatever it is. Like, what do you have to kind of show for that? Now it's already, so it's not the same anymore.
Yeah,
It's
and
like
they're not making money off of the people that are paying it on time with no
right,
interest. They're making money off of the people that are
the
not
late,
paying
right.
it on time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I want to take a moment to say hello to our some of the people that have made comments. Tangi, she said hola, and Lily Matos dice hay que hablar todo el tiempo, no esconder el dinero ni los secretos. Yeah, porque
Supuesto.
eso es muy común en nuestra cultura, right? Our
Mm-hmm.
culture, we always have secrets. You always, the wife has these shopping bags in the
Credit
back of the
card,
trunk,
yeah.
and she's gonna bring them in the house when he goes to work, or a little credit card here that he doesn't know
Mm-hmm.
about. So yeah, that's important to have that transparency.
100%. Yeah. To have a healthy relationship is all part of communication. So yeah, having that again, finance is one of the biggest issues that people have in any kind of relationship. It could be parents and children, it could be spouse, whatever it might be, friends who sometimes can lend money in a friendship, and that can cause a lot of hardships, a lot of ruined relationships over just something as simple
Yeah.
as maybe saying having that conversation before.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've said it on air before, but my grandmother used to do the envelope method.
Mm.
So whatever she got paid, she would have different envelopes for different bills, including we lived in New York, so she took the subway. So like even transportation for the subway, savings, emergency fund, everything was in an envelope. But she never sat down to explain to us what
Yeah,
what
you
she
just
was
saw the money
doing.
going in there and
Yeah,
then
just as an adult, I
yeah,
remember reading a book and I was like, "Oh my God, that's what she was doing."
yeah.
And she paid off her apartment in 12 years instead of 30 years.
Wow.
And
Okay.
she has a third grade education. So she did the envelope method, and she stuck by it, and she said, once the money was gone for food, like that was it. Like
Mm-hmm.
that was it. And even there was a period, she's 88 now, she'll be 89 soon, but during her time, in her emergency fund, it was like $2,
Mm.
$2 or $3 per week. And
But all her bills are paid.
all her bills were paid. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
everybody has a different system, and everything is not going to work for everyone. So like that's kind of the when there's somebody who kind of offers a financial solution for the world, is not going to work. Like it has to be based on whatever that those needs and wants are for that person. Because as much as I tell somebody not to go spend some money on Starbucks every morning, if that's their joy in life, like to wake up in the morning and go, then we got to work it out so that it's not causing a burden and everything else. If you want to have that nice car, then you got to know that that payment is going to come out with higher gas, higher maintenance, all that kind of stuff. So let's figure that
Mhm.
out. Let's do a reality check on whether or not this is really going to work for your scenario, and if not, maybe we can settle for something else or whatever it might be. But yeah, finding what's going to work for everybody individual is different. Some people don't believe in credit, others believe in using their cards to pay everything. So everybody has kind of a different and I've had a few people who use the envelope method in a different form now, like they kind of put it in a book and all kind of things. But whatever works, that's going to at least have all your bills paid and not having the stress of that.
Yeah. Yeah, because I think it's important too what you said about having those life satisfactions.
Mm-hmm.
So, like you said, if you still want to drink your Starbucks coffee or whatever, but then that means that you're gonna have to sacrifice somewhere else.
Right.
If you're not willing to sacrifice that $8
Every
cup
day.
of coffee or whatever,
Yeah. Right.
So yeah, that's very true. I wanted you to tell us a little bit too about, like, since you're working so much with the military,
Mm-hmm.
I could just imagine the transition, right? Especially if you could tell us maybe a little bit about like young people that go into the military, and then all of a sudden they're getting this money, and maybe they've been deployed or just gone for a while, and now they come back home and they
Mm-hmm.
have all of this money
Yeah.
to spend. What scenarios have you seen, or what advice can you give us?
I mean, I think I've seen all of them now, and it's only been about a year and a few months since I've been there. But I've seen a scenario where they've saved every dollar that they've had put away while they were deployed, or they got a bonus and they went in, and So I have a 22-year-old who might have $40,000 saved in their savings account. Then I also have the opposite of that. So I had mentioned that I was on the ship for a couple of weeks, and on their return, our job was to like counsel and have conversations about how the process has been. How are they looking financially before they go back home? Because now you're going back home to either a family, to nobody, or to a new relationship, an old relationship, whatever it might be. So how are we going to transition from getting off of here for 9 months or 6 months to going back home? Financially, there was always some kind of issue happening. So it could have been that what I would see with a lot of the younger sailors is that they were approved for substantial amounts of credit, which always blows my mind. But not knowing how to operate that credit, and if you have nothing else to do but work and sleep while you're on these ships, and the only feeling of satisfaction you get may be from ordering something online, or maybe you are stop at a port and you can buy some nice things for your family, or you go out with your friends and have a good time, and that could be where that debt starts to build up. So at the end of that 6 to 9 months, sometimes they'll have a substantial amount of debt, and now we got to figure out how to pay that off. But so we try to have those conversations before they go. It doesn't always happen, and then there's those that are listening, and then they come back, and it just depends again how you grew up, what your family dynamic was like, what you're used to in spending and not spending financially. So we try to either encourage whatever they're doing and maximize that. So somebody who saved during their time, okay, how can we earn interest on this? How can we make that grow for your future? What are your plans for that? Are you going to buy a home? Do you plan to invest that in the market? What are your plans for the money that you saved? And then for the other scenario, we'll go through a whole expense plan, and we're going to say, okay, you're getting back off the ship in 2 weeks, or you're going back to whatever you're PCSing to a new location in a couple months. How much is that going to cost to live? Let's do an expense plan, and we'll break down every expense that they're going to have. So that could be, the coffee, it could be the gym, it could be tattoos, it could be the gun range, whatever it is that they're doing on their spare time. How much is that going to cost me? How am I going to pay this debt down sooner? What can I apply to that? And what do I need to do to not be in this solution a year for, or this situation a year from now? So we kind of look at all the scenarios in this world, and not everybody's not doing well. You'd be surprised actually how many young people are more aware nowadays than we used to be, because
Mm-hmm.
there is a little bit more education than it used to be. And then there's the social media and online stuff, and TikTok gives you all the answers.
Yeah.
Not the right answers all the time, but they do help sometimes. So it does awaken them a little bit more. So the younger generation can be a little bit more aware on how to manage their finances. But if they're not, we just kind of take a step back, look at what we need to plan for, and then kind of go from there.
How old are your children, and what have you taught them about finances?
Oh boy, what's funny is that your kids not always the ones that listen to you the most. But
Yeah.
so mine are 26 and 24. I have a granddaughter that's 2 years old. That's my whole
Oh,
heart. Yeah,
okay.
but I mean, it was always credit was kind of a big deal. And what's funny that even if they had a girlfriend and then somebody came into the other picture, or their friends, we would always have a discussion, about like what's the importance of not going to get this big fancy car as soon as you can afford it or you get a new job. So we always had those kind of talks. So they never really were big on things. I would say like materialistic kind of things. Um, I have one though that is a spender, and the other one is more of a saver, and so they're both kind of opposites, and it's just really having that conversation. So like now, my oldest son, who took a little longer to get on track with where we wanted him to be, he'll send me text messages, and he's like, "Yeah, look, I got my credit at such and such. Like that's amazing," and I was like, "Keep that up," and that kind of thing. The other one would like pick on him and be like, "Well, finally," but he was a little bit more, he listened a little bit more as we were getting into that age. But it's always important, if you can, before they turn 18, put them on some type of credit card, get them to as an authorized user, of course, because they're not old enough, but or as soon as they turn 18, have them establish some sort of credit on their own and help manage that, because there's not any, for the most part, they're very little 18-year-olds and understand how credit works and how damaging it could be, even if you only have a $500 credit card. So kind of making them aware of that was my goal, because that wasn't something that was taught necessarily, and not because it wasn't a want. Like my parents, of course, wanted us to know all the things, but they were just in like survival mode when I was growing up. So it was just a different time. Now that I can and I am aware of what's important when it comes to finances, and I try to pass that message on as often as possible, and show them the importance of not taking out a 30-year mortgage if you cannot do, look at other alternatives to help kind of build yourself financially. Mm-hmm.
That's interesting. Where's your family from? What country?
Nicaragua.
Nicaragua?
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Yeah.
you were born here?
I was born in New York. Mm-hmm.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. You have two sons?
I have two sons. Yeah.
Got it.
Uh,
So where do you see yourself in like 5 years from now?
Um, I think I would like to maybe just kind of. I said this the other day that I was in New York, of course, grew up there. I was in North Carolina for a while, and now I'm in Virginia. But I would kind of like to go in different cities and kind of do the same thing. I don't see myself this career changing very much. I love what I do. I absolutely enjoy having that kind of impact on individuals or families or however. So whatever that work is, if I still continue to work for the Navy, which would be fine with me, then maybe doing something that requires travel or possibly like remote and kind of be able to go to different locations. I didn't do a lot of traveling, which is also something I encourage my kids to do while they, are young and able to kind of see the world. I think there's a lot that we can learn from one another. And I saw a video the other day that said we're only here for a certain period of time, and everybody that we're here with, we're here together at the same time. So they were like, "This is your crew. Like the world right now is made up of your crew. We could hate them or not like them for whatever reason, but no matter what, none of us are going to be here again in another 100 years.
Yeah.
So we might as well like appreciate who we're around and kind of enjoy this time. So I kind of want to like do a little bit of exploring and learn other cities, other cultures, other kind of stuff too. Yeah.
Wow. I didn't
Hmm.
know you were a grandmother. That is
Hmm.
amazing. I love that.
Yeah.
Maddie's a happy grandmother.
Yes, it's nothing like it. Like they say, for real, there's nothing. There's nothing like you. I wouldn't have any idea before this moment, but she's yeah, she's everything. And I had two sons, so now it's a granddaughter. So
Girl, oh my God,
yeah.
that's even that is awesome. I love it.
Mhm.
Have you just throughout your experiences working with the Latino community or Latino women specific, if you want to touch on that, in reference to how we view finances? There's a lot of fears in
Mhm.
reference to how about money just in
Right.
general, saving for it, making the money. So what is it that you have noticed about our people in how we view money? Because a lot of the times I think it's the fear of even having the conversation,
Yeah.
maybe because we don't know or
Right.
because how our family raised us to feel about money. And like some people fear being millionaires,
Yeah.
because it's like there's a fear in that too.
There
There's been
is.
fear in not having enough, and then there's fear in having too much.
Right. If I have too
So
much.
what have you seen?
A little bit of all that too. I have had conversations where somebody would say, "I'd rather not know than to have the discussion." So like opening up and having that trust of being able to have that conversation was tough. It was always kind of breaking that barrier of like, I promise this is just for your best interest. It's all confidential. We're not gonna, I don't share any of your information. Like, so having that trust of being able to have that conversation with um, us in general is a path in itself that can it was sometimes can be heartbreaking because you know that there's things that can be done to make sure that they are secure financially, but not wanting to open up is if you don't talk at all, then there's no way for us to have have that conversation of what's next. Um, Talking about retiring was always hard. Like I don't want to worry about it right now or right that I don't want to worry about that today. Whatever happens then, it doesn't matter. Blah blah blah. Talking about not having life insurance. If you pass away and is your family going to be taken care of? Oh, no me importa, no está aquí tampoco. Anyway, so like I'm not going to be here, so why would I worry about it? So like that kind of stuff. It was very. There was some stubborn stuff happening, but then it is always others that encourage one another. Depending on your circle, of course, in the Latin community, it could be like a group of women that want to empower each other. So there's been situations like that too, where you got to get this taken care of. What if something happens to you? Then your kids are going to be left alone, and we need to plan for that kind of stuff. So it was a little different, but just making sure that I can kind of break through that front line was always the most difficult part of just starting the conversation. Like, look, you're making this much money right now, but you're not always going to be making this income. What's going to happen at 60 years old if you get sick and you're not able to continue to work, even though in your mind you're going to continue to run your business or do these things forever, but anything can happen tomorrow. So we got to make sure that we kind of plan for that. And that was always hard. And I think that's kind of a part of how we're raised too. Like both my parents, my father worked his entire life until he got to where he absolutely could not work, and then once he couldn't work, he got sick, and he only had a couple years of collecting Social Security after paying into it for 45 years that he was able to benefit from. So like, we want to be able to get people to understand that there is a better life you can build for yourself. You just have to be able to plan for it, and we have to talk about it and see what that means to you. You know?
Mm, interesting. So we get a lot of information from a website called HispanicStar.org. And one of the things that they mention is says Latinas lose over $1 million in their life as a result of the gap of pay.
Hey, absolutely. Yep.
Hmm.
No, that
So
is definitely.
have you experienced that?
Yeah,
You personally, like, I get paid less than.
absolutely. Yeah, especially in the corporate world. Right now, it's a little different. It's a federal situation. There's kind of across the board. It has nothing to do with that sort of thing. But absolutely, and maybe not as much as it used to be, but it's still there. Um, Definitely in the corporate world, there would be somebody who might get a promotion, who was a male, and they were making more in that position, even though maybe our titles were the same. The income was different. So yeah, there's absolutely there still is a pay gap, and it was a lot more back when I was in the bank world, but it definitely is still there, and I see it. I'll never forget. I saw somebody's paycheck that worked at this particular what do you call it, like home supply business, without saying a name. Um, but they worked the exact same job, the exact same amount of hours, and it was husband and wife. She made less than the husband was making, probably working harder than he was making at the same exact job. And it kind of blew my mind. And I was like, why? She was like, that's just what they offered me when I started. And then there was a situation where some people were getting paid a little bit more for speaking another language. And then that started getting taken away too at a period of time. So, it's still not equal across the board in that realm,
Mhm.
unfortunately.
Wow. Um, have you ever thought about doing any entrepreneurship ventures
Yeah, well,
yourself?
I kind of did for a little while doing the financial planning thing. That was kind of on my own, probably the last 3 to 4 years. Sort of, you kind of create your own clientele, your own business. Of course, my office was in downtown Norfolk, so paying for your own office space and um, learning how to kind of navigate that as a self-employed individual was a lot different than working at a place where you'd get a paycheck every 2 weeks or a couple times a month. So yeah, I have ventured into that world. It's not for everybody, and it is rewarding in its own way, but it is tough, and especially being a female
There's
in
like a double whammy, right?
right.
Latina,
Hmm.
female.
Right. So everybody wouldn't listen all the time. They would be like, "What do you really know about anything?" It was a little tough because what they expect to see when they say somebody's coming to do your financial plan is not always somebody that looks like me. There's usually like a persona or a look for, that kind of individual, and that wasn't. Sometimes I would actually walk in the door, and they were like, "Are you coming before the person that's going to come?" And I was like, "No, it's going to be me." So yeah, that was an interesting part of that life.
Interesting.
Hmm.
Let me read you some other stats that they have here. It says 1 out of 3 service industry employees are Latinas. 20% of Latinas work in management, art occupation, business, and science. 20% have a bachelor's degree. 72% graduate from high school, which was an increase from 2010. Latinas are integral part of the workforce and the future of the United States. So one thing that I always mention on our show is that Latinos in general, we contribute 3.4 trillion dollars towards the economy. Um, and that's not every dollar that's counted up there, of course,
Right.
because as we have mentioned, we're secretive about the money that we make.
Absolutely.
But that's a big number. 3.4 trillion dollars is
Hmm.
our contribution,
Hmm.
and everybody's not doing the envelope method, but we're
Right.
definitely making money and we're spending money.
Hmm.
um, so I think, what do you think about that number? Like, do you, like, I know it's a tremendous number,
Hmm.
but how do you see in the things that you have seen throughout your lifetime how powerful the Latino economy is?
Yeah, it's huge. I think I kind of like that you say that, and maybe those statistics need to be shared a lot more often publicly because
That's
I
why I say it every
yeah,
Sunday. I
that's
say
amazing.
it.
It's there's a lot of negative stuff that happens right now when they're talking about, especially it's election time, right? So immigration is a big topic. So a lot of it is like they're coming to steal our jobs, they're coming to do this work. So that kind of that kind of triggers a little something in me because I know how hard my family worked. I know that they didn't get all the benefits that they should have gotten, being a citizen or not. Like my mom ended up becoming a citizen. My dad stayed a permanent resident, but always paid taxes and always paid his dues and all that kind of stuff. So, and they didn't have like a lot of credit. So a lot of it was financed just by their income that they were making and still contributing to the economy. So it's a little frustrating to hear sometimes when they say like that, that we're here to kind of take over and whatever president is letting all these people come in the country and take these jobs and steal opportunities from us. I mean, that's kind of unfair because we all had to come here under drastic measures sometimes and kind of just make it to the points that we are right now. But yeah, absolutely. We contribute in a lot of ways, and sometimes that's not always just within the Latin community. That's in every community. I mean, we're like I could speak for myself. If there is a business that's starting, and I know that they just recently started, and I know for myself and a lot of my peers and the circle that I'm in, we like to support other businesses regardless of what culture they're in. Or where they came from. If I know that I know what that's like to start from the ground up and try to build something and make it successful, and you want to take care of your family and all those kind of things. So we see that. I'd rather go to that little mom and pop store and purchase whatever it is that I might need instead of going to the big retail giant and do that. And I know there's a lot of people in our circle, in our world, whether it's Hispanic or not, that do the same kind of thing. So
Hmm.
um, yeah, I think that the focus needs to be more on kind of working together instead of trying to um,
Yeah.
separate us because there's a lot more productivity that can happen if that's the case.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So, do you see in your world that people support each other, like in the military world? Do you think that they, like, if somebody is, like, if their spouse is self-employed or something like that, or they have their own business, do you, because I think the military people are kind of like very tight at
Yeah.
times,
Yeah.
for this, for them to support each other,
Hmm.
versus, let's say, some Latinos. Like a couple of weeks ago, there was an event here, and they did it like right in the heart of the apartment complex. They had a little cookout, and
Okay.
so it's an apartment complex, and so apparently uh, the community manager said, the apartment complex manager said that, like, they would have to have another event at the other complex because those people from the other complex are not going to come to this complex. So
Wow.
it's a lot of division. Sometimes within our own countries, like,
Hmm.
people de Nicaragua or Colombia, they
Oh
might not,
yeah.
but I think sometimes too, when we start to be around each other and trust each other, because I think there's a lot of trust issues.
Yeah.
If we can kind of trust each other, and if we can come together, like, we could be so much stronger,
Absolutely.
in reference to supporting, like you were talking about, supporting the small shops.
Hmm.
It's kind of like, like, what do you see with the, like, with the military community in reference to supporting each other like that?
There's a lot of programs that are offered to the military that a lot of them maybe may or may not be aware of. So there's different things like MWR and like family readiness stuff that helps them to kind of come together when there's times like that. Do they always work? Maybe not as successful as they want to be, but they do try. There's an attempt there to bring families together, to have a support system when somebody does deploy, for the spouses to kind of work together. So there are things that are already kind of established there. I kind of say it's funny because we're on the base and we're working this center. In the center that we work at, there's counselors, there's mental health providers, there's training for all different sorts of things. So like somebody who's in service can come to this one building and have almost all their solutions answered, sort of in a way, which I think is amazing. But they may not be aware of it, Or there's also a fear of like, am I coming there because I have an issue, and is that going to be an embarrassment if I walk in the door? Does that mean that I have something going on? It's not always like that. Like, you could just come because you want to learn more about a particular topic. Like, you don't know how to put, how much to put in your retirement or savings or whatever it might be, or you just want to go talk to somebody because you've had a rough time, maybe in deployment or whatever, and there is somebody that they can talk to. I think also with the Latin community or any communities, it is a fear because of ignorance. So we don't know, like, what this, I already have this wall up because I think they're not going to like me if I go to this part of that cookout, or maybe we're not going to get along because of things that are on the news or on TV or wherever. I think you just kind of got to step away from that fear and get to know for yourself. It's kind of like when you have that friend that's like, I don't talk to such and such anymore, so you shouldn't. That's very,
Right.
that's not, you can only blame yourself if you're not involved in something that's happening, because of a fear or because you were told by somebody else maybe that's not the place that you need to be. As individuals, I think we got to take a little bit of ownership and responsibility on that. So be that one person to say, hey, let's go to the cookout and check it out, you know, for this
Mhm.
time. And if it doesn't work out, then we don't have to go back again. But
Right.
yeah, just give it a
But
shot.
at least you tried, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
Hmm. Do you see, in reference to the Latino community and like entrepreneurship, do you see that husbands tend to support female when they start to do their own business,
Um,
or
I
or
think,
not?
I mean, it's a touchy subject, and yeah, it is a touchy subject. I think it's based again on the dynamic that they maybe were in their household. So if it was, it could have been seen as maybe, if the wife is now in a powerful role and they're doing a lot more maybe than that, spouse is doing, or maybe a little bit earning more income than the spouse, maybe they might feel like they're not doing their job because of course in like a lot of the like community, the male is supposed to be like the provider and all that kind of stuff, which is amazing. I don't think there's any of us that don't want a husband that is. But sometimes, we could be really successful and that can also be, um, maybe intimidating for the spouse from that success, and then that could cause some conflict. So there is absolutely a discussion that should have happen. If you're going to get into this industry and you know that it's going to take you away from the family for whatever, we're doing it for the best of the dynamic of the family in the future, and that's what we're going for. As long as, again, communication is key. So talking about it, how do you feel about me doing these events? How do you feel about me, being out in the community more? All those kind of things to really see and not just assuming that something else is happening. But yeah, there is. I wouldn't even say it's just in the Latin community. I think in any marriage, when you have
A
somebody,
relationship.
yeah, successful, or doing well, maybe well better than the other person, there's always some kind of, okay, well, am I a part of this still, or are you gonna like do your own thing now? Like, so having that kind of conversation, I think,
Yeah,
yeah,
that is interesting. I've heard of different scenarios. Some with the husband is like, yes, and then there's a lady, she's been like a serial entrepreneur, so she has tried multiple things, and he's like 100% supportive of,
yeah,
every venture she goes into.
right,
And then you have some other people where they see it, but they don't really see the fruit
right.
of them going into business. So they're like, like, what are you
What are
doing?
you
Like,
doing?
you're
Yeah,
wasting your time, but it's truly her passion.
right.
And so how do you, so at the same time, you don't want to kill the passion, and I don't know, it's challenging. But like our producer said, trust communication and honest
Mm-hmm.
communication is crucial. Yesterday I saw, because I give my life to TikTok, probably at least 30 minutes every day. But I saw a video, and it was in Spanish, and it was like an older lady. She was retired. And so, she finally comes home and she greets her husband and her son, and they're like, "Where have you been?" She's like, "I'm on vacation. I went to Germany," and she went to all these places, and they were like, "You've been gone for a year, you know?"
Oh,
She
yeah,
was like, "Cause I'm retired. Like, this is what I'm doing."
yeah.
And then they're like, "Well, who's supposed to pay the bills here?" She was like, "You, because you live here. I don't live here. You're not paying for my vacations,
Mm-hmm.
to go to places." But I just thought it was so interesting because that's so modern, right?
Yeah, so,
That's not something my grandmother would ever think of doing.
absolutely
That's
not.
not happening.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I think we have a lot of like female liberation.
Yeah.
We have this sense of freedom of even though things are not equal. I just read this too. It says Latinas will not achieve equal pay until 2197.
Wow. There got to
Imagina.
be something we can do about that. Like, that makes no sense. Another 200 years? No. Yeah. That
Yeah,
doesn't
that's
make,
a lot. That's a lot
yeah.
of
That's a
time,
lot of time. Yeah. Nobody
Yes,
gets
but
that.
I always, anytime I read statistics, I'm always thinking like, statistics can be manipulated so
Yeah,
much to kind of show the message that you want to send.
right.
So I don't know where they got this 2197 from because I don't like it,
I don't like it either, and I don't believe it. I'm not gonna take their word for that.
That's
Yeah,
a long time.
it is a long time.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, I love the all the information that you gave us today. I wanted you to tell us like three things that you know are crucial for us Latinas in reference to not necessarily having financial security, but
Mhm.
just three things that we can plan with our finances that are going to give us a little bit of confidence in my financial life. What
Uh,
are some musts?
Number one is just making yourself. I think we talked about it earlier. Making yourself aware of what's happening in your household. If it's you and your family, then having that discussion, have that meeting, at least check in. Maybe if it's not once a week, once a month, and just find out what bills need to be paid, what the goals are. See if your goals are common or not. Like, what is your plan for when you guys are 60 years old and living together? Do you want to move out of the country? Are you going to stay here? Are you still going to have a mortgage? Are you planning to help take the care of the kids and paying for their down payment and all that kind of stuff? So like have a conversation, being aware of where your bills are, where the money is going in that household every day. If it's just you, then always do a check in even on yourself. Like sometimes we don't realize what we're spending money on until we actually like take a minute to look at our statements and take record of what we're spending our money on. Because sometimes we can just make that purchase on Amazon and it turns in from one purchase to like five purchases a week or whatever it might be, and we might not even be realizing we're spending that money in different places. So being aware, tracking your expenses, um, knowing what all the accounts are, making sure your beneficiaries are up to date, making sure you are listed as beneficiary for any of your joint accounts and so on. Having a will, having a trust if necessary. So documentation and being aware of where your finances are really important.
Mhm.
Um, I would say saving so that if you do have a major expense, you're not putting it on the credit card. You're not going to, finance if you need to have work done on your vehicle. You have to now go finance it to pay the higher interest rate and so on. So saving, even if it's just starting out, just start where you are. Put $25 a week away until that starts to build up to $50 a week and $100 a week or whatever it might be. But you want to get to a point where the goal is to have 3 to 6 months worth of savings of your expenses put away. So that is where, and they say the average household has less than $1,000 or not even that. So you want to do better, kind of take a look at where you can cut back on certain things if you need to. Some people don't even realize that you can get a lower car insurance rate if you just call and get an updated quote on your insurance. Call around, ask, see if you can get different pricing. So look at all your bills, see where you can save, see where you can cut back, and then start putting that money away for emergencies, and then eventually getting to retirement planning. Um, and I think then it's also important for us to take care of ourselves. I think that we are taught to like take care of everybody else. My mother was big on like she wouldn't sleep if it was something going on in the house. Just worrying and not kind of taking care of yourself. You are a big dynamic of most of your households, so kind of take a breath, take some time for yourself, do that self care, whatever that may be, even if it's tomando su café and outside in the morning, take a few minutes to kind of just relax, gather all your thoughts. Go get a massage, do the things that you should be doing kind of for yourself and all the work that you do, so that you could be there for your family and your spouse and your children and so on. But yeah, take a minute. I think we work extra hard sometimes. Maybe it's just for to prove ourselves or because that's what we were always taught is that we come last. Um, so put yourself first, do a little something for yourself, and take care of your health and physical. We are the ones that are most prone to dementia and Alzheimer's and all those things that as we get older, health situations. So get that workout in, get your physical health together, your mental health together.
Wow, yeah, I love all that advice. My advice for Amazon
Yeah.
is like I always put things on the cart, but then I don't buy them right
Mm.
away. So I'll just put them there and then I'll wait a day or two and then I'll just check it again to
Like,
see
do I
if it's
really?
an item that I really
Yeah.
need, or I'll just click on save for later,
Mhm.
because then I get to see the total amount of purchase. So I'm like, okay, so then I start to eliminate things, save for later. So I don't delete it. It's
Yeah,
still in my wish cart. So that's one advice from me to
I can
you
see
about
that
that.
working. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah. But you just have to, I think it's just discipline,
it
you just
is.
have to like kind
Because
of
we
get it
are
done.
that instant gratification can be real easy. You just hit the app. Oh, I want that
Oh
right
my
now.
God, yeah.
Then it's yeah.
Yeah.
Then it's
Especially
like
because I
no.
have an Amazon credit card. So
Oh,
like
it's
yeah,
real easy.
rewards and oh my God, yeah, it can get out of hand. So our producer wanted to ask you, what do you think about your advice to avoid predatory lending?
Do your research. If it looks too good to be true, it probably is. Ask all the questions. Try to get finance with your bank or financial institution ahead of time. Um, if you feel like you're being pressured, then it probably is a reason for it. Anytime they want you to make an urgent decision or you gotta have this right now. Because if not, like a lot
Yeah,
do that a lot with we do a lot of car buying stuff on base because that's kind of like the one of the biggest factors that can affect your financial situation for a long time, especially if you end up with a really huge car payment and now you can't afford everything else. So, yeah, we talk about that. They usually kind of reel them in, and then this is the only car you're gonna get. It's never gonna be here ever again for the rest of your life, and you're never gonna have this car. So we know, there's a million of them in the world. Just walk away, take a breath, think about it. Just like you said with the car situation, put it aside, put it in your mental cart, and just be like, okay, I see it. Do I need it right now? Think about everything else that comes along with that major purchase. Are you going to have to maintain it? Is it going to have to um, be repaired or fixed or whatever it might be? But yeah, just I think take a breath, not to do anything instant, and then weigh out all the factors. Anytime somebody's making a major purchase, we do a whole expense plan and we figure out all the different parts of what can happen. But don't go online trying to make major purchases.
yeah. I'm like,
Those
when they started talking like that, oh, today, this is your, I'm good.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah, I
exactly.
keep it moving. Yeah, because
They're
it's
always like,
if
what's up?
it's meant for me, it's meant for me, and
Right.
I'll find it somewhere else. If not, hey, but
Absolutely.
I'm not rushing into it at all.
All of that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So Tangi said, thank you, Gisela.
Oh, you're welcome.
Lily Mato, she said, muy interesante. And Tangi also said the show was great today.
Thank you.
So typically when we end our show, Maddie does a poem for us.
Oh,
And so because we're celebrating Hispanic Heritage Month, she said that you will be doing a poem instead.
wait a minute, Maddie. I was like, we're gonna have to let me call her real quick. I'm gonna need you to send it to me,
I'm
Maddie,
just,
because I don't.
I'm just
Yeah,
joking.
poetry is not my thing. The roses are red,
Yeah.
violets are blue. That's
Well,
fine.
a couple of months ago, she made us she challenged us. She didn't make
Mhm.
us do it, but she challenged us to do a poem. So
Oh,
our other lady, Nick Day, she did a poem, and I did a poem, and our
wow.
producer did a poem as well.
Just like off
So
the cuff, just a
no, no,
random.
no, no, no. We had
Oh, okay. I was gonna
no, no,
say,
no,
yeah.
not off the cuff. No, we had. I think she gave us 2 weeks.
Okay, that's
Yep.
pretty.
So thank you, Tracy Tucker. Great job, ladies.
Thank you.
All right. So the poem today is by Denise Froman. I hope I said her last name properly. But because we are in Hispanic Heritage Month,
Mhm.
Maddie suggested she's been doing poems from other Latina poets.
Nice.
So today, since Maddie couldn't be here, she wanted us to play a poem by Denise Froman. She's Jew-Rican, I guess, half Jewish, half Rican.
Wow. Okay.
She was raised. She's Jewish and Puerto Rican, born and raised in New York. She's a slam poet, activist, and an educator.
Wow.
So our producer is going to go ahead and play the poem for us from Denise Froman.
I love it. Okay.
My mom holds her accent like a shotgun with two good hands. Her tongue all brass knuckled, slipping in between her lips. Her hips are all laughter and wind clap. She speaks a sancocho of Spanish and English pushing up and against one another in rapid fire. See, there is no telling my mama to be quiet. My mama don't know quiet. Her voice is one size better fit all. And you best not tell her to hush. She waited too many years for her voice to arrive to be housekeeping. See, English sits in her mouth remixed, so strawberry becomes strawberry. And cookie becomes a cookie. And kitchen, keychain, and chicken all sound the same. My mother doesn't say yes, she says, aha! And suddenly the sky in her mouth becomes a Hector Lavoe song. Her tongue can't lay itself down flat enough for the English language. It got too much hip, too much bone, too much conga, too much cuatro to two-step, got too many piano keys in between her teeth. It got too much clave, too much hand clap, got too much salsa to sit still. It's be an anxious child wanting to make Play-Doh out of concrete English. Be too neat for her kind of wonderful. Her words spill in conversation between women whose hands are all they got. Sometimes our hands are all we got, and accents that remind us that we are still bomba, still plena. You say huepa, huepa. You say huepa, huepa. And a stranger becomes your hermano. You say dale, dale. And a crowd becomes a family reunion. My mother's tongue is a telegram from her mother decorating with the coquis of el campo. So even when her lips can barely stretch themselves around English, her accent is a stubborn compass, always pointing her towards home.
I love that poem.
I love it.
And so today we didn't speak a lot of Spanish because Gisela is more comfortable in English, but you call yourself what when you speak Spanish?
Oh, when I say how I speak Spanish, it's like a Spanglish.
Yeah.
I grew up in New York, so I have like my dialect is of every, I think.
Every a little bit. You got New York, a lot of Latino mixes in there.
Puerto Ricans,
Yeah.
a little bit of everything. Yeah. That was amazing.
Yeah.
Though. I love that, and it's true about the accent, and it's true about the dale and all that. Like, I do love that. Like, it is something that kind of brings people together. It's just that.
Oh yeah, and I love people that have accents because I think it's a lot of us here in the United States are afraid to speak English because of the accent or whatever. But I think by you having an accent, you're showing your culture and where you're from. It could be Latino or from anywhere else. But I think to have an accent is not a terrible thing.
Yeah, no,
you're kind of like telling the whole world, I'm not from here.
Right.
So
but I am still speaking English too. So yeah.
Yeah. But thank you, Gisela, for all the information you gave us.
Thank you for having me.
And we'll have you in again at some point. We always talk about money,
Yeah.
Okay. So now make sure that you tell people that Latinos contribute $3.4 trillion to the U.S. economy.
I sure will. I might have to post that.
Yeah. So make sure you are spreading the word like we do. But thank you. I hope you have an amazing week. And we'll see you soon again. And we will be here every Sunday at 4:00 Eastern Standard Time. Nos vemos el próximo domingo a las 4 de la tarde. And que tengan una semana fabulosa. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you, guys.
Whether you're a seasoned designer, dabbler, or just starting out, this course is for you.
Are just so impressed with them. Like I said, we've been with them for years. I will recommend and refer anyone to them. We stand by A+ academics. They're the best.
A+ tutorial really did help me with all my grades. They all went up when I came to this place. And I would say I recommend this school to everyone.
So it's a really good environment to be in, especially for me because it makes me look up to my parents.
If you have students that need academic help, A+ Academics is the place to be.
A+ Academics, what a great place to go for academics.
It's just a really great place to learn.